chapter 20, verse 1. Exodus chapter 20, verse numero 1. And if you have the King James Version, you'll find these words. And God spake all these words. The word of God. That's enough. So it should not be a surprise today when I tell you, J. Marie, that the subject of today's lesson is God spake all these words. I told you before, my brothers and my sisters in Christ Jesus, our living Lord, that America is not a Christian nation. Now, yes, we know that the Christian influence runs all through it. In fact, the founding of this country, as well, Andrew, as the framing key political documents, they rest upon a Christian foundation. The Declarations of Independence, which is the foundation of our nation's constitution, is actually embedded with a Christian world view. So much so that it would actually be controversial to read it out loud in many of our public schools as well as other venues because of the current secular movement that is moving toward removing Christianity from the public place. So even though people talk about the Bill of Rights and even though people talk about the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, you can't even read those in the public place because now you may offend somebody. Don't you know that the four principles that anchor the Declaration of Independence, it actually starts and ends with God? The first principle that highlights or anchors the Declaration of Independence is number one, all of our rights come from God. Not the state, not the Senate. All rights come from God. Secondly, the purpose of civil government is to secure those rights. And immediately after Easter, we're going to be starting with a special Sunday school 10-week thing where I'm going to be showing you what the purpose of government is. And it ain't some of the stuff that we think it is. And it's actually going to shock some of you because when you look at line by line, and I'm not saying I'm changing my voting status, but the Republicans actually line up closer to what true government is supposed to be. Now, that don't mean they ain't nuts. And because they're doing some stuff that ain't in the government. But I'm just saying, they actually line up closer to the Bible than do Democrats when it comes to the government. And we'll be teaching about that. And we'll also be showing you that the church ain't the first place you run to when you need help. We're going to show you the government and who you're supposed to run to first. All right? So secondly, we're going to the Declaration of Independence. The purpose of civil government is to secure those rights, those God-given rights, that rights come from God. Thirdly, the power of civil government is given by the consent of the governed, each with whom is fully entitled to rule. And the fourth anchor that anchors the Declaration of Independence is the right to govern is forfeited by a tyrant to lower civil magistrates in order to restore the rule of law. You know, my brothers and my sisters, those of you that had history class, John Quincy Adams, who was the second president of the United States, this is what he said. He said, "We have no government armed with power, capable of contending with human passions, unbridled by morality and religion. Avarice, ambition, revenge, or gallantry would break the strongest cords of our Constitution as a whale goes through a net." He goes on to say that our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people, and it is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. And then George Washington, on his farewell address, this is what he said. He said, and let us with caution indulge the supposition that morality can be maintained without religion. So as you can see, the Christian influence is all through this. John Jay, who was America's first Supreme Court justice, said providence has given to our people the choice of their rulers, and it is the duty as well as the privilege and interest of our Christian nation to select and prefer Christians for their rulers. So even though you can't stand up and read the Declaration of Independence out loud, you see the Christian influence that's running through the very fiber of this nation. In fact, it was Reverend John Weatherspoon, some kin to Betty Weatherspoon, them, a Presbyterian minister, who actually signed the Declaration of Independence. My Country, 'Tis of Thee was written by a Baptist minister by the name of Samuel Francis Smith. The Pledge of Allegiance was written by Francis Bellamy, a Baptist minister, in 1892. The words "In God We Trust" are traced to the efforts of W.R. Watkinson. So it shows you that even though we're not a Christian nation, Andrew, we are built upon Christian principles, and they run all throughout the great documents that we have in America. Now, even though I say America is not a Christian nation, 76% of us still continue to identify as Christian. Now, by saying now, my brothers and my sisters, unless y'all want to shoot me, that America is not a Christian nation, I am not saying that we are an ungodly nation. I'm not saying that, so stay with me. I am not saying that America is heathenistic or evil or wicked in all of its doing. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that from recent poll data, Andrew, and from a plethora of articles, it shows us that at least conceptually, we are slowly becoming less like traditional Christians, the way we think about God, ourselves, and each other. So the way that we think actually lines us up closer to Buddhists than it does Christian, even though 76% of us identify as Christians. So now, Deacon Henry, according to polls and the data collected, the article makes the point, watch this now, that even though the vast majority of Americans identify with the Christian faith, the same ones who identify with the Christian faith, they also say, but at the same time, there's many ways to get to God. You figure it out. Just as there are many ways to climb a mountain, each religion offers its own way to God. They say none is better than any other, and they even quote in the article the words of Jesus when he said, I am the way, I am the truth, and we're coming back to that, and I am the life. No man comes to the Father except through me. The point is, if we would get it, Andrew, that's the problem. We can't get to God. Why do you think God came down to us? Because we couldn't get up there to him. So that should show us that religion doesn't work. Those words would appear to be an utterly exclusive claim, but many churchgoers now, no longer really believe that, according to Pew Research poll. When surveyed, 65% of all Americans agree that many different religions can lead you to God. Also, the number of Americans who consider themselves, watch this y'all, spiritual but not religious has risen from 24 to 30% in recent years. Because some folk, they're spiritual. They're just spiritual. What does all of this mean? Andrew, can you cut something off in these? Something coming back to me. What does all of this mean? Stephen, now bring it back to me. Just without the feedback. Bring my sound. Yeah, okay. Keep the sound, but get the other out. Stephen Prothero, a religion professor at Boston University, points to American pragmatism. He said, it isn't about orthodoxy. He said, it's about whatever works. He said, if going to yoga works, that's great. And if going to Catholic Mass works, that's great too. That's great, Andrew. You were right on point. And if going to Catholic Mass plus yoga plus the Buddhist retreat, that's great too. Because of this, it is being said that Americans, including a heavy chunk of what they call evangelicals, we actually take a divine cafeteria approach to the faith. We pick and choose whatever we want to believe. I'll take a serving of God's love, but I'll skip the part that talks about hell and judgment. Yeah, give me a small serving of church and give me a big helping of make me happy. This sermon, my brothers and sisters, is actually setting up the 10 Commandments. It's setting up the series that we're going to be preaching on the 10 Commandments. Now, speaking of the 10 Commandments, most Americans, as well as Christians, don't know them. I'm getting ready to prove you don't know them either. Most Americans, when surveyed, watch this now, did a better job at naming the 7 ingredients of a Big Mac. Now, I'm going to stick the mic toward you, and you tell me the 7 ingredients of a Big Mac. Y'all know it. 2 off-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. Now name 3 commandments. Most of us know the ones we broke. %, surveyed knew about the all beef patties. 80%, serious. But only 60% recognized do not kill. But 80% knew the ingredients of a Big Mac. Only 45% knew honor your father and your mother. That's why y'all be cussing them out. Those that let you cuss them out, because that's the parent fault. If the kid cussing you out, it's your fault. 34% knew remember the Sabbath day, and only 29% recognized do not make any graven images. Make no mistake about it. America, we know our hamburgers. We just a little shaky about the 10 Commandments. In the United Kingdom, only 6% of those surveyed could name all 10. 6. Among those between the ages of 11 and 16, 28% could not name a single one. The survey revealed that many people actually prefer an updated version of the commandments God gave to Moses. They even say that 4 of them are no longer relevant. The 4 that they judge are no longer necessary are, number 1, keeping the Sabbath day. And we'll be preaching about all 10 of these. They said, but that one ain't no longer necessary. The second one that ain't necessary is don't make any graven images. The third one they say is no longer necessary is having no other gods before me. And the fourth one, Professor Horsley, they say is not necessary is we don't need that one no more where it say don't take the name of God in vain. Maybe Deacon Bonner, that's part of the problem. Not knowing what God has said, we feel perfectly free to revise his commandments to fit our 21st century worldview. They have never been repealed. They have never been amended. And they will never be repealed. And they will never be amended. As we set up our sermon series on the 10 Commandments, the most important part of the 10 Commandments, Reverend Jackson, is actually the way the passage begins. Before any of the commandments are even given. Look at Exodus 21, and that's the title of the sermon. The most important words is not the 10 Commandments. The most important word says, and God spake all these things. Because if he didn't speak them, it wouldn't make no difference what the 10 was. See, in our attempt, Justin, to get down to what we call the good stuff, we rush over these words as though they were some kind of ancient copyright notice. We just jump right to the commandments. Usually we flip past the title page to get to the first chapter. But that's a mistake because these words tell us who's speaking. Let me ask you 3 questions. Number 1, who is doing the speaking here? God is. You see, if you believe in the 10 commandments, then your belief is predicated on the belief that we are given these laws by an authority that's higher than any man, any government, any institution, or any organization, or any type of government. If you believe these, then you're saying that God gave these, and you believe that God is sovereign if you believe the God of the Bible. Now that's important because had Adam given us these 10 commandments, we could have said, well, I don't need to live up to them, Adam, because you ain't all together yourself. You done made some mistakes in your own life. If it was not for you, your wife wouldn't have bit that fruit, and y'all would still be in the garden, and we wouldn't have prickers in the world. We wouldn't have mosquitoes in the world. We wouldn't have all this bad stuff going on. So, Adam, you can't tell me anything because you jacked up just like me. So if Adam had written it, we could have had a problem. So we ain't got to keep them 10. Adam didn't, you know what he did? He punked out. If Noah would have said these 10 commandments, we'd have said, no, I ain't keeping that because you might have been drunk when you wrote them. You do remember when Noah, now God bless him, I mean, he was on that water all that time. He needed something to drink when he got off. Soon as the boat landed on dry ground, brother went and found some grapes. And the Bible don't try to hide it. It said Noah got drunk. So drunk that he came out of his clothes. And that's why when Ham went to cover him up, Ham laughed at him instead of covering him up. And that's why God said, Ham, you are cursed. And folk telling us Ham cursed because he's black. Now, that ain't nowhere in the scripture. That ain't why Ham was cursed. Ham cursed because he looked on his daddy's nakedness. He didn't do nothing to touch him. He just shouldn't have laughed and made fun of him. That's why Ham was cursed. Don't let nobody tell you you cursed because you black. No, you cursed because you stole something and your credit jacked up. It ain't got no godly curse on you. It's something you did. I'm just saying, we blaming everybody. Folk blaming Donald Trump on the reason they broke. No, you was broke before Donald, and you're going to be broke after Donald. Your brokenness ain't got nothing to do with him. If Abraham would have said, these are the commandments that you got to go by, we can say, oh, I already got a problem, Abraham, because you lied on your wife. And because you've sinned, then you can't tell me what I need to keep. Deacon Richardson, if Isaac would have told us that you got to keep these 10, we could have said, oh, no, you just like your no good daddy, because you lied on your wife too. Jacob would have said, well, you got to keep these 10. We could have said, now, Jacob, you ain't nothing but a trickster. You tricked your uncle and you tricked your brother out of your birthright, and you found out that your uncle could shoot dice better than you. Because he gave you Leah instead of Rachel. And you didn't want Leah because the Bible said Leah was tender-eyed. Tender-eyed, meaning it hurt to look at her. Meaning she wasn't pretty. She was tender-eyed. Young ladies, listen to me. Raquel, somebody ever tell you tender-eyed, that ain't a compliment. Yeah, tender-eyed, that means you make my eyes tender looking at you. He wanted Rachel. If Moses would have said, you got to keep these laws, now Moses gave them to the people, but he got them from God. If Moses would have gave them, they said, we don't have to keep these things because you killed a man. So you can't be giving us instruction. If Solomon would have said, the wisest man in the world, that you got to keep these 10 commandments or else, we could have said, Solomon, now who do you think we got? Dude, you had 700 wives and 300 girlfriends. Ain't nobody going to listen to you. Read 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 3, the Bible tells you he had 700 wives and 300 concubines, which was girlfriends. You think you player. He got 1,000. And all his 1,000 look good. All of them. Peter would have told us, you got to keep these 10 commandments. We'd have said, man, you done lost your cotton picking mind. How you going to deny Jesus and then expect us to live up to something that you didn't live up to? So it wouldn't work. If Paul would have wrote them, they said, Paul, now I know you ain't telling us how to live, man. You was persecuting Christians. You was a show-enough trip. But the Bible don't say that. It said, and God spake all these words. And the Bible said every word that comes out of the mouth of God is true. The law of the Lord is perfect. So now you ain't got nothing to say against anybody. Because the one who wrote them, you can't find a fault with him. Because you remember, it was not Jesus' friends. It was Jesus' own enemies that said, I find no fault in him. Judas walked with him 3.5 years. Judas seen him when church was out. If Judas would have seen anything opposite, Judas would have acknowledged it. But when he brought the money bag back, he said, my hands have betrayed innocent blood. Even Pilate, the one that they sent him to, came back and said, I find no fault in him. So we got somebody who wrote these that ain't never made a mistake. We got somebody who wrote these that ain't never misstep. We got somebody who wrote this whose righteousness in all of his ways. We got somebody who wrote this is holy in all of his ways. We got somebody who wrote this that is majestic in all of his ways. We got somebody who wrote this that is sovereign in all of his ways. We got somebody who wrote this that we can't look at and say, you made a mistake. Because he didn't. So the Bible said, not Moses, God spake all these things. The second question, what did he say? He said all these things. Looking for something to come out the ceiling, wasn't it? He said all these things. What are the things? The 10 Commandments. So then, Justin, where do the 10 Commandments come from? God. So if they come from God, who do you think you are that can say 4 of them are no longer relevant? You didn't write them. God did. And if God wrote them, he must think that they're important. You see, my brothers and my sisters, these are not 10 suggestions for your best life now. Ashanti, these are not 10 words that you should consider. These are not 10 habits of highly successful people. These are not 10 ways to climb the corporate ladder. Or these are not 10 ideas that just might work for you. No. The text I read said, God spoke all these words. You remember, I know every black kid do. You remember you'd go to your parents. We got folk now who explain. Now I do, there's some things that you can explain if you wish to, but sometimes you don't have time. Just get your butt in the car because, somebody coming with a rifle. Just get in. They ask me why I got to get in. Get in or get shot. That's what you're going to do. But when we came up, we didn't do it because we had good sense. But some folk would actually ask their parent, why do I need to do that? And the parent would say, because I said it. That was good enough for us. That was good enough. That was good enough. Yeah, I've seen kids receive stitches for asking questions. And they didn't take you to the hospital to stitch you up. They took you to the medicine cabinet and told you to put some cocoa butter on it. Yeah. We didn't have to ask kids coming up what happened to you. If they had a knot, we said, you said why? So if a parent has that much authority, then how much authority does God have? The Bible says God spoke all these words. Therefore, they have lasting moral authority. Because we evolve. God spoke all these words. Therefore, we don't have to wonder about his intentions. What did he mean? He meant what he said. God spoke all these words. Therefore, we must take all of them with utter seriousness. Sometimes Josh and Jada will use us on the other one. They'll tell the other one something, and they have this thing, you're not the boss of me. And both of them will say real quick, Mama and Daddy is. They know it. And what they say, if Josh tells Jada to do something and Jada doesn't hear Mama or Daddy, Jada won't do it. If Jada tells Josh to do something and he don't hear Mama and Daddy say it, they won't do it. But you let him say Daddy say it. You let them say Mama say it. Why? Because they recognize Mama and Daddy is their authority. Yet we look at God as if he's our equal. God spoke all of these words. Therefore, we must give them our primary attention. The Bible said God spoke all these words. And guess what? God did never, ever, ever stutter. He didn't say, I know this is a profound and it's a radical claim. And as Christians, look, we believe that God's spoken to us in the Bible and that he's spoken such a way, watch this, that we can know what he says. This stands squarely against the relativistic spirit of this age with its claim that no one can really know the ultimate truth. That's a lie straight from the pit of hell. John 8:32 to 37, to 47. It's going to be on the screen. John 8:32-47. I'm going to show you that God actually tells us the truth. Our problem is we don't like what he said. We can't know real truth. Yes, you can. I'm getting ready to show you. John chapter 8. Watch me. I'm going to read verse 32-47. Is it up there? And Jesus said, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Now, what do you mean we can't know the truth? He just said that you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. But watch me keep reading. I'm going to show you folk don't want truth. They answered him and said, we be Abraham's seed, and we were never in bondage to any man. How sayest thou you shall be made free? They are lying because right now, as the text is written, they're in bondage to the Romans. So what do you mean you ain't never been in bondage? You lying now. I told you, Daddy said some folk dumb to the fact that they dumb. They ignorant to the fact that they ignorant. They was dumb to the fact that they was in bondage. Jesus said, verily, verily, which means truly, truly, I say unto you, whosoever committeth a sin is the servant of sin. And the servant abideth not in the house forever, but the Son abideth forever. Watch what it says in verse 36. If the Son therefore shall make you free, you shall be free indeed. He said, I know that you are Abraham's seed, his posterity, but you seek to kill me because my word has no place in you. He said, I speak that which I have seen with my father, and you do that which you have seen with your father. In other words, Jesus said, you and I got a different daddy. And I'm going to tell you who your daddy is in a minute. They answered him and said, Abraham is our father. And Jesus said, lie number 2. Jesus said unto them, look, if you were Abraham's children, you would do the works of Abraham. Watch this. But now you seek to kill me, a man that has told you the truth. What the world mean we can't know ultimate truth? He said, I've told you the truth, which I have heard of God. This did not Abraham. He said, you do the deeds of your father. Then they said to him, well, we ain't born of fornication. We have one father, even God. He said, lie, lie, lie. He said, if God were your father, you would love me, for I proceeded forth and came from God. Neither came I of myself, but he that sent me. He said, let me tell you, why don't you understand my speech? Even because you can't hear my word. Why is that? 44, you are of your father, the devil. This is that nice Jesus that y'all love so much. The one that no one wants to confront anybody else. We want to sissify Jesus down nowadays to appease people. This Jesus in the Bible wasn't no punk. He looked at them in their face and said, you are of your father, the devil. You didn't think he offended him? Do you think he cared? He said, you are of your father, the devil. Watch this. and the lust of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning. And